I've been getting messages on Facebook from people that are like messaging me about like, you know, Red Cow Arcade made a video about you, and I'm like, who and why?
Can I tell you a lot more about Kieran? We did 2 videos about the AVGN editor, Kieran, quitting. But apparently on the second stream that he did, where he talked about his situation, we only saw the latter hour of it. And there was another hour of other content, and I've taken extensive notes, like you do. And I'd like to just share the details. And because I think some of them, like, actually are the first ever confirmations of certain things we've been speculating about for years. And I also think there's another angle to this that I'd like to discuss.
Mysterious.
So, yeah. So I consider this hour a new treasure trove of information. Let's get into it. So he says that people who started at the same time at the company that did none of the work got paid triple the money. Very vague statement. I don't know who or what he's talking about. He contests that the channel, Cinemassacre, makes a ton of money. And that for that reason alone, a person who is show running a lot of their content to be paid $41,000 a year, and that was the number he went with, 41K. And I think I think what he ultimately says is that it was like a $40,000 base salary with a $1,000 bonus or something like that. He feels as though for a channel that makes that kind of money, he should be paid more. So he said that the channel makes about $60,000 a month on AdSense alone on just the channel.
Makes sense.
So, you know, 50% more than he makes for his annual salary. And the majority of that comes from legacy views on legacy videos. So all the evergreen content continuously is producing revenue. Then you also have, he said that a new video, like in its first week, a new AVGN will make about $5,000. So if it hits 1 million within 3 days or something like that, it's normally you're talking about $5,000 in that first week. So that's good perspective when you consider, like, okay, so if you were making 6 new ones a year, those 6 new installments at $5,000 a pop will come out to $30,000, which is not a tremendous amount of money. But you're kind
that's
of
just in the first few weeks, right?
But yeah, you're kind of adding to the library of evergreen content that's going to kind of keep the channel alive for a lot longer. But he says that between DVD sales, which continue, between merch, between the video games and the second channel, and he made a very special point to say, including the AVGN movie, which apparently is on streaming services and makes a lot on said streaming services. People are watching it and paying for it all the time.
What streaming service is it on?
Great question. AVGN movie streaming. Where can we watch it? Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie. Well, the first result that comes up is archive.org. It's just up there for fucking free. Wow. Okay. I see it's on Tubi. It's on Google Play. It's on Epic Stream. That one might be illegitimate. Well, Tubi and
Tubi's a real thing. Like Red Letter Media is always talking about Tubi.
I think it's on Amazon Prime. I think it's on Vimeo. So there's quite a few places you can watch it and stream it online that you can pay for. But he said that the movie in particular makes a lot of money, which is interesting because I've always considered the movie like a bad business decision. You know,
interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that personally because I can't even watch like 10 minutes of that movie.
No, it's so bad. Everybody feels that way. But the quality of the movie apparently is irrelevant because when you have that many eyeballs, I mean, the thing is, like, his character is really popular. I mean, we just talk about him and we gain fans. I mean, like, That's the kind of heat this guy is giving off.
Sure.
But what he's saying is the Cinemassacre company makes a shitload of money. And now, what is a shitload of money? A shitload of fuck. I'm going to guess we're talking about like 1.2 mil a year, all told, grosses. That sounds about right to me. I could be wrong, but it sounds about right.
That's quite a good bit of cash.
Yeah, right. So Kieran, after a little bit of time, got a $1,000 a year bonus, and he also got the title of showrunner after he had done some heroics, and that apparently took a very long time and was something he had been fighting for. And I think he didn't say this, but I think Justin was named showrunner or producer, a couple of years ago. I remember Justin saying, "I'm the producer of the show. It's my responsibility to improve it," or something. But Kieran became showrunner, and got $1,000 a year for his trouble.
Yeah, it's like it's not very much of a promotion.
I think what you were going to find as we go through the details is that at some point it's obvious to me that the company wanted him gone. Because you would like if they're making this kind of money and it's reliant to some degree on producing new content, and he's the guy producing new content, and you're not willing to compensate him fairly, I think that's your way of like soft firing him, basically.
There's they do that in Japan where if they don't like you, they just stop giving you work. And there's like a famous Reddit thread where somebody goes on to like Reddit. It's like, hey, I moved to Japan and I'm like working, and they just stopped giving me work. Like, what's going on? It's like, oh, they want you to quit.
Wow, interesting, very interesting. He said that like he would voice criticism, and they would accuse him of being combative and having a bad attitude. And so I think probably their side of the story, I think we can infer, is that they thought he was a pain in the ass at some point, and was making his own bad decisions or representing. You know, of course, these guys deserve a bad.
Yeah, I'm like I don't know the pot calling the kettle black there.
Yeah. Of course. But the difference is they're the ones in charge and he ain't. And so, look, it would be very frustrating to watch your company make terrible decisions about a property you're a fan of. And make you complicit in those bad decisions and then stay there. It would be very, very difficult. But I also get he doesn't come off to me as an especially good communicator. Like, I feel like his tone of voice, his up inflection, the way he rambles, I could see like even fair criticism coming off as kind of just like bitchy, you know, and not really wanting to deal with it. Screenwave, according to Kieran, blamed James and Mike for why Kieran wasn't going to get a raise. They said, sorry. They said that Cinemassacre pays that salary and that Cinemassacre won't do it. And that, and then Kieran spoke to James and Mike, and they said there's nothing they could really do since they weren't the bosses. So there's a Grapes of Wrath thing going on here.
I don't go to blaming me. It ain't my fault.
Whose fault is it?
You know who owns the land, the Shawnee Land and Cattle Company.
And who's the Shawnee Land and Cattle Company?
It ain't nobody. It's a company.
Remember the whole Mike's leaving the channel thing?
Yeah.
Well, according to Kieran, Mike owns half of Cinemassacre. And so Mike did not leave any channel. Mike stopped performing on the channel. Mike stopped working regularly on content that Screenwave was kind of like dictating to him.
So wait, he's not helping? He's not help?
He's helping plenty. I mean, it sounds like honestly, it sounds like he never stopped helping for a moment. It's that they stopped doing James and Mike Mondays. They stopped doing there's a number of things he stopped being involved with. He focused on streaming more, but he owns half the company. He is Cinemassacre. That's why he's like, that's why I went to James and Mike, you know, not James and Mike.
Wow, that is interesting.
But
yeah, because the speculation at the time is that Mike cashed out and left.
Yes,
that was the speculation at the time.
But then he adds, and this is very important. Do you remember? Probably as early as our first videos about this, we were saying like, "Hey, Justin confirmed that Screenwave does not own Cinemassacre, that James owns Cinemassacre." Now we know James plus Mike.
Yeah.
And that they only contract out Screenwave. Well, not according to Kieran. According to Kieran, Screenwave owns a small piece of Cinemassacre.
Ah, like a shareholder.
Yeah. So they own some small portion, and that otherwise James and Mike are, in his words, equal partners. Which is interesting. It makes sense. I mean, in 2006 or whatever, that's what you would have done.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
The two of them would have gone into business together, right? I actually hearing him talk about. He repeatedly says in his video, he's like, "So I told them I was either gonna quit or they were gonna fire me, and I told them that a million times." And I was like, "Well, then you didn't do either one of those things."
Yeah, it's not a good thing to just say that.
You don't say it. You don't ever say that. You don't ever say like I might quit. No.
No.
you voice your concerns, you voice your, whatever, you have your hard conversations, but I don't think you'd say those words until like it's about to happen, basically.
Yeah, you'd be like, I'm about to leave the company for this other job.
Yeah, right.
You need leverage,
Exactly, and that's certainly something he lacks. But hearing him talk about like, the relief he felt to not work there anymore. I once rage quit a job. I remember. I remember I was a busser at a coastal restaurant in my town from the time I was 16 to like 17, maybe to 18. It was 2 years, I think. It was this high-end, fancy seafood restaurant. Everybody loved it. They would always get, especially in the summertime, they would get wasted. And they'd put me on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would mostly just get tips. Or I would get tipped out from the wait staff. So the wait staff got really the huge tips, and they would tip me out at the end of the night. So you could make like up to $160 in a night. That was like a huge haul back then. You work your ass off for that $160. And I remember it became one of my chores, my and my friends' chores, to clean the bathroom, the men's room. And it was supposed to be the kind of thing that the men took turns on. Like sometimes it was the busser, sometimes wait staff, sometimes kitchen staff. Like it was like a shift rotating thing. And they were like, well, let's just get the bussers to do it. And so I was cleaning up like what was essentially like wine vomit, and like I remember there was a drain in the center of the room. And I just started like, dumping water in there. It was like they didn't give a lot of times you needed like hazmat stuff for what was in there. And they didn't have it, but then the waitresses started to be like, Frankie, can you clean the women's room? And suddenly I was cleaning the women's room too, like night after night. And one night I started like mouthing off, basically. That's what happened. And I was asked to go upstairs, and I got a big talking to by the boss, who was like a total asshole. Like a big, like, I don't know, think of like a cartoon caricature of like a restaurateur capitalist.
I got you.
And he was that. And I remember he kept saying, he was like, if you don't like working here, maybe go work for fucking at that supermarket down on the street. Go work for fucking them. It was like 1 a.m. I was 16. Like labor laws being broken, being paid under the table and shit. And I remember I went out to the car with my friend, and we were covered in like seafood crust. The apron, because we still had our apron on, and over the course of the night with that damp towel that you wipe the tables with, it's got like the fried crumbs from the fish and chips and stuff, and you're just like covered. And when you walk into I go home to my parents' house, I was like stink like fish. And food service, I don't miss it. And we were standing around my 1992 Subaru Legacy, and it was my buddy who he goes, I don't think I can ever come back here again.
And you're like, yeah.
And it hadn't occurred to me, like, why don't we just go ahead and quit? Why don't we? And I'm the type of because I'm conscientious or whatever. Like, I just never thought, like, why don't I just quit this fucking job? Like, my parents weren't pressuring me or anything like that. And so we kind of worked up the courage together. We went in. We walk upstairs. Like, yeah, what the fuck do you guys want? And I was
in
like,
the crusty towel.
Yeah, and I was like, and then my buddy goes, yeah, I'm just done. I'm done. And I go, yeah, I'm done too. And then like they cashed us out or whatever, we left. And I remember driving home with this like elated feeling of like, I don't need to worry about that place anymore. That place doesn't control me in any way anymore. That my boss is just some douchebag now.
Yeah. I think of the only place I quit was Dunkin' Donuts. I worked there only 2 weeks, and I just found a better job, and I was like, because food service does suck.
I remember I tried really hard to get a job at like there was like a place in New Bedford that printed T-shirts, and like they needed somebody who was like a Photoshop person. And I thought maybe I could, because I was going to either scoop ice cream or do that. And I was like, oh, maybe I could design T-shirts for the summer. And they didn't hire me. And then like a few weeks later, they're like, do you still need a job? Would you like to do T-shirts? Maybe I should have done it. So anyway, I guess that's how Kieran feels now. Is like it's behind him. But of course, there's this meme of like he keeps talking about it, and I have new theories on that. Let's see. Kieran says that the Batman episodes of AVGN are his favorite of all time, like the really old ones. He also said that he was a big fan of AVGN. He had seen all the AVGN episodes, but he was not a fan of any other Cinemassacre content.
Interesting.
Never watched Monster Madness, never watched James and Mike Monday. He wasn't a fan of any of it until he started working for Screenwave. So he said that if he creates a YouTube channel, and at the time of this recording, he was undecided on that. He was talking about maybe getting like a real job. But if he were to set up a YouTube channel, he would then do a clearing the air, tell all, debunking kind of video, like a drama video is what he would make. And having heard him, he was like, these Red Cow guys, they've made a video about me that has like a lot of views and it's about my life. And I think like he would really like to have a career on YouTube, and he's looking at like if these strangers can talk about me and get 150,000 views. I think that's why he's like he's trying to act like he's too cool for like an interview or to come on our show. In reality, I think he's making a business decision. He's going like, why would I give away why would I spill all the tea on somebody else's show?
Yeah,
why not
that's
set
like
up
how many impressions I'd get if I just did it myself. Cut out the middleman.
Yeah. Who needs these fuckers? And I can say that they're just speculating, and so I think that's what's going on. And yeah, so since this was recorded, he has set up a YouTube channel, and the intro video was like him talking about his Patreon, and he's trying to sell. Did you see this, EJ? He's trying to sell his
I've seen
Patreon.
like weird drawings from it, and they're just kind of, at like MS Paint level, like Tim and Eric almost humor type stuff.
Yeah, like with due respect to Kieran, like it's a pathetic video. Like, it's about like, hey, sign up for my Patreon, and you're not going to get anything for it. Like he's going like, I might do video blogs, I might do streams. Please send money. I don't. It was really like, hey, can you like put together a better plan than this? Than other like an open ended, and it did make me consider. I was like, it is quite something to get that level of exposure through a channel that humongous and really have very little to show for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he had hundreds of thousands of people, like even seeing him on some of those shows. So you'd think he would at least get some sort of recognition for it. And
he admits in this, he was like, I guess I admit that I was kind of chasing clout. He has a little bit of an introspective moment. He's like, I remember I was at a YouTuber party and like Ego Raptor came up to me. And he said, hey, aren't you Kieran from Rental Reviews? And I was like, oh my God, yeah.
Famously, the Game Grumps like made fun of Mike Matei in the early videos. Yeah, there's like a video of them doing impressions of Mike Matei, during his like motherfucker Mike phase.
Oh, are you? Put my peen in your butt. Are you impressed? Do you like how I slide? I'm gonna slide it right in. That's what she says. She says, yeah, put a dick in me. Yeah, that's what she says.
It's totally weird how.
Yeah, isn't this supposed to be castles in Sonic games? What is this, Castlevania?
Yeah. Castle my asshole. Mike Matei has his own opinions. I'm sure he's a human being. I'm sure somewhere down there, if you reach deep into Mike Matei, you will find a smidgen of humanity.
It was hilarious at the time because like nobody was making fun of Mike Matei at that time. So it's because it was like 2012 or whatever.
That's funny. He said that like he was talking to a supermarket manager. A friend of his is a supermarket manager who makes like $80,000 a year. And he's like, why don't I just become a supermarket manager at this point? And I'm like, well, because it's hard to become a like it's not just some like bullshit job. Like And,
yeah, it's tough.
And there's money in and money out, and you're protecting it. And like, I was a little annoyed by the. I got
hiring teenagers who will throw their crusty rags at you and quit.
Yeah, I'm not coming back. He said that I've always asked the question because it looked to me like Tony was using their set still for his whatever his show is there, Smack the Boobies. But somebody said no, he recreated the set, like a perfect replica of the set in his own space or something. So I always wondered, like, what's the affiliation with Screenwave still? And everybody insisted to me that there's no affiliation. Not what Kieran said. Kieran said that he said no, he doesn't work for Screenwave. Screenwave he's currently under contract with Screenwave, but he doesn't work for them. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's not on the payroll, but like being under contract with somebody means you're working for them.
Yeah, essentially,
it's like a contingent worker. James wrote all of the 2022 videos, says Kieran, but huge asterisk. He's like, no, of course we all got together, me, Mike, and James, and we got together and we made up like jokes and stuff, but like James put it all together into a script. So this is the distinction they're drawing.
I see.
So
he's so he's the head writer, James Rolfe.
he assembles what is spoken about into a script, you know? He said that Kieran himself did the proper kind of the body of the edit, the video edit. And then someone that he wouldn't name, I'm going to guess Justin, who got paid a lot more, took 2 days, which he felt was too slow, to, quote, fix sound and color correct before handing off to James, who then did some kind of final touches with the edit. That's the pipeline. And he felt as though this person that touched it up was at some point or another getting more credit than him for editing. I'm not sure exactly how that timeline matches up.
Who is responsible for the color correction in the end?
Yeah, maybe that's kind of what he's trying to say. He's like, I didn't do the color correction. Well, wouldn't that be interesting? Poor Kieran. Everybody's all over subreddit talking about how anything he touches turns to piss.
I mean, I do think Kieran was wrong for the tone of the nerd, definitely.
Yeah. You can really kind of see that now.
Yeah, now that he's gone, it's like, okay, well, I still think, he can edit and is competent in it, but yeah, I think tone-wise, they don't mesh well.
Yeah. He's got a little bit of a Zoomer humor in him, right?
Yeah. And James is like Gen X,
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever.
Got his own thing going. Whatever he is, he's James.
Kieran felt as though Screenwave was really obsessed with gimmicks that wouldn't make any difference to the audience one way or another, such as throwing a game into lava. Remember, they had a whole gimmick where they were like, we're going to take a game and throw it into actual lava, not just CG lava like James always does. And he was like, that's the kind of thing that like the audience didn't care about. And he mentioned too that like they were the ones so they would frequently go to James, he says, and they would say, this week you're going to do an episode on Green Dog. And James would be like, okay, I've never played Green Dog before. And they're like, yeah, and you're going to throw a cartridge into lava. So in other words, they would show up and say, here's the concept for the show. Then the group of them would get together and workshop like ideas for how it could work. And then James would go write it and make it. And he felt like, he was like, James doesn't not want to do the nerd. He just doesn't want to do like bad ideas. And Screenwave kept telling him to make bad ideas. So there's this new question that arises from that, which is like, why is James powerless in these situations?
Yeah, because then that could contribute to, this passionless experience of doing something as an assignment,
But is that like somehow easier for him? Or he's like, yeah, but at least I'm just taking orders and that's just easier for me.
He can literally not push back even a little.
Yeah, like you make what you want to make. And there's going to be there's going to be a theme. Yeah. So get this, dig this. They had their crisis with the plagiarism. Kieran fixes it. He re-edits everything. I still don't think it even really made any difference anyway, because how many people were even following Monster Madness that year? It was on Odyssey,
Right.
It's almost like you could have like canceled it like mid-season and like you would have disappointed how many people? Like not very many. I don't know. But in any event, he's the one who fixed it. Then apparently they were, according to him, over-outputting AVGN episodes in 2021. That in 2021 they came back from COVID and they overdid everything. That led eventually to the plagiarism. And then in 2022, they kind of handed the reins back to Kieran. He was allowed to make kind of what he wanted. He felt views were back up. They were achieving 1 million views per episode more quickly. And then once that was happening again, according to him, Screenwave kind of got greedy and was like, okay, well now it needs to make more money again. And So they said, we want ideas for like how Cinemassacre can pull in more cash. And Kieran's business proposal for this was that they would bring back James and Mike Mondays, which had been retired in late 2020. And they would bring back rental reviews. Now, rental reviews had been getting 150 to 200,000 views per episode. So not nearly as many as Nerd. But there were more of them. And much more importantly, they sold brand deals on them. They sold brand deals all over the place with those things. Every 10 minutes, they would read a fucking ad on that thing.
Right.
Because it's a podcast, in effect, right? And you can kind of get away with that with podcasts. You can't get away with that on the Nerd. You can't take commercial breaks on the Nerd. You can front load it, but on a podcast, everybody expects it's going to be interrupted on some interval for commercials. So, according to Kieran, James and Mike were down for these ideas. Bring back James and Mike Mondays. Mike was on board for this. And James apparently is a big fan of rental reviews. I actually remember him saying something. He was like, I can't get enough of those rental reviews. And then apparently the things get confusing. His girlfriend got COVID. He was out due to having been exposed. Because for some reason, this company, despite everybody going to virtual work in 2020, they were big on like going into the office together, it sounds like.
Wow. I wouldn't have expected that.
It seems that way. It seems like they were real into their offices.
It's like we're just now starting to get back into the office.
Yeah. Yeah. And
even then, we're still hybrid.
Yeah. And during that time when he was out with the COVID exposure, a coworker, unnamed, put an end to it all. Somehow sabotaged the idea. Somehow they talked James out of doing rental reviews. They talked Mike out of doing James and Mike Mondays. They talked everybody out of everything. And management, Ryan, Justin, I don't know, they yelled at Kieran for, quote, ruining the company and accused him of trying to go into business for himself and to steal rental reviews for himself, for his own channel, and for his own streaming. That was the accusation. So I think that is a glimpse into their side of the story. They felt as though they had a guy who was a dissenter who was going to run away with some of the business.
I don't know. If you're paying him $41,000, like,
yeah, what do you expect? Yeah,
he's, I don't know. He's trying to, be ambitious with it. I don't know.
But also, like, how do you steal rental reviews without stealing James? Like, James is the draw, and like, James is not going to go with you. James isn't going to do anything. James is going to lay on his futon with a headache.
Yeah, I would have to hear more of that story because that sounds odd.
Apparently, it was the Doom episode that, in Screenwave's eyes, the channel was turning back around. It was becoming popular again. Yeah, things were getting better. And as a result, to reward Kieran for a job well done, they offered him at first a $55,000 a year salary, up from his $41K. But then they changed it back to $41 with a new proposal, plus a $1,000 bonus at that time, and 2% of the AdSense of the channel. So if we're talking about $60,000 a year, let's just do the math real quick. So 60,000 times 12 is what? It's $720,000 a year, right? So that would be like an additional $15,000. So it's the same fucking amount of money.
The same amount, yeah, except it's contingent.
Yeah, right. He would have a skin in the game. So they turned around and said, yeah, 55 as long as you're performing.
Right.
I still think 55 is for a salaried employee and they were putting him on lots of other projects besides AVGN. They were having him talk about games. They were having him edit YouTube Shorts, which we'll talk about in a moment. They were having him edit top 10 lists for AVGN, and so they were throwing him onto all kinds of projects all the time. He was in it sounds like unlike Quentin reviews slobs. It sounds like he was in a very real way, like a fully salaried employee.
Right.
When they were doing better, James, Mike, and Kieran, again, according to Kieran, came to an agreement that they would only output 6 episodes of AVGN a year, It's really interesting and funny because we on the podcast were like, they should do like 6 a year and then every other month do some other project,
Yeah.
And James and Mike liked that cadence. They thought that was something that they could actually keep up with. And Screenwave was unhappy with it. They wanted a lot more output than that.
I mean, I feel like Screenwave is just a bunch of meddlers.
Well, it seems like their business model is like buy stuff up and then like business it up.
Yeah.
And like so often in the arts, when you business something up, what you're really doing is sucking all the appeal out of it. Yeah. I mean, like if somebody were to buy Red Cow Entertainment and then do what with it? How would you?
An ad read every 5 seconds.
Well, like we've heard a lot of ideas where they're like, you guys should do like, on BoxMac, like maybe do more with like mascot characters because people search for those. And you start like taking these opportunities to commercialize it in a way that would like instantly suck the appeal out,
Yeah.
Put a hot chick in it. They sent Kieran to MagFest and they got mad at Kieran because he didn't stop James from talking to Screw Attack. Now, again, how funny is that? Because
we were.
I just recently was like, maybe they should go to Screw Attack. Apparently, they're a step ahead of us.
They're worried about that.
I'm starting to think, because Kieran at one point is like, there's all these people online just speculating about total nonsense. I'm like, I don't know, man. My track record's been pretty fucking good. I feel like I can smell it all a mile away.
Well, we are the premier experts.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, just some stuff is just like, well, how many possibilities could there be? And then you go with the most likely one, and then you're right. He's right about this, though. On the subreddit, I see nonsensical speculation nonstop. And it's,
I mean, the Cinemassacre Truth, besides some, like, random stuff, it really has gone downhill, I think.
2021 was their big year, and it's kind of, the moment has passed. I don't
want to make enemies of Cinemassacre Truth, of course.
The mods I still am friends with. I feel like I like those dudes, but it feels as though
so the magic is not entirely there.
Yeah, it's time to move on to Quentin reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
It's time to
lots of flower gothic to mine there.
We don't need to stick with the same channel. We can be the YouTube truth. We can. At some point, you got to go west.
Well, it's like how James rebrand from Nintendo nerd to video game nerd.
That's right. Just broaden your horizons a little bit. There's lots of slob news out there. Just got to find some. I got an email just tonight. Some guy was like, "I'd like to inform you about some slob news," and it was about like that channel, The Wolf Den, and that channel Beat 'em Ups. Something about like their streams and how they now have. They have some slobs, and he feels like the magic's gone ever since it got slobbed out. Anyway, very interesting. The story of outsourcing. Yeah, after a year of working at Screenwave, that was the first time he was shown the Cinemassacre Truth. So he wasn't aware of the subreddit for about a year. And then again, to reiterate what we had heard last time, Justin, Ryan, and the management there were obsessed with Cinemaster Truth. Again, we called it. We said, I was like, I think that Justin guy is just as much a truther as anybody. And sure enough, they love it. They couldn't stop reading it, and they were modifying and responding to it with content changes. And it makes me, at the risk of being egotistical, is it possible that at any point in our lives have our shitposting podcasts ever changed content on Cinemassacre? Is that possible? Maybe.
We were up on that subreddit a lot, so
yeah. Seems like that's all over with. They don't post our clips anymore.
No, that's okay.
I'm fine with it. The story kept kind of sounding like James works for them. Like they had edicts that James had to carry out. And that he was burned out from pumping out shitty content in 2021. That was some of his feedback. He was like, I'm kind of burned out from all this shit content you guys have me working on. They would pitch ideas like the lava. James had to write it. He put it as James had nothing to go off of. They were giving him stuff to not go. I'm like, well, but have Mike come up with the ideas. The last straw for Kieran, I don't know exactly why, it was he was given the assignment of working on YouTube Shorts, of making a bunch of shorts dedicated to old AVGN moments or whatever. And he felt it was a tremendous waste of time, that you can't monetize these things. There's no point. It felt like kind of a punishment assignment in his view. And that these guys were obsessed with shorts, they said. Well, in fairness to Screenwave, if you own a media company and most of that media is on YouTube, and YouTube rolls out a massive new feature that everybody is taking advantage of and everybody's competing with in kind of an arms racy kind of way, yeah. And if you have legacy content that you can clip and you can like help memorialize moments and keep the brand alive through that, like why wouldn't you do that, you know?
Yeah, and YouTube, I don't know how much they were, but they were promoting shorts a lot.
Yeah,
and,
in that moment, yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah, I guess they took Kieran off of his top 10 videos to have him do the shorts. And it further evidence in my view that they were trying to drive him out, maybe. Management, he said, didn't care about his personal life. He felt like they didn't care about his humanity. And so that's to me a little bit kind of like, well, that's life, that's work. But he turns around, and this I can see. He's like, but they would, and again, I think anytime he's saying that, because he was sure to say a lot that he had friends that worked at Screenwave and that there's lots of good people there. So I think mostly he said that he was slagging off management. That management would come to him, maybe I'm imagining Ryan perhaps, and would blab and blab and blab at him about their personal life when he was trying to edit, which is kind of funny to me.
Oh man, it's true. Like that's the one thing about being in the office is that people blab at you, and especially if you're editing, it's like you get into a groove. Oh yeah, your autistic groove and your tunnel vision.
Absolutely.
And somebody breaks it, and you're just like, ugh, and then you have to go back and you have to like figure out where you were in the edit. And and
I don't know about you. I actually can't read unless it's silent. I can't read if there's music playing, for instance.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So like, yeah, I'm pretty like, I can't really have stuff going on in the background. Certainly not if somebody's demanding my fucking listening attention. That's like, I actually, when I'm in the office, I sort of often have to be like, I have to do this right now. I can't like, cause I could either do that or I could pretend I'm listening. I don't want to pretend I'm listening. He said he's going to leave a Glassdoor review, which is kind of funny. He said again, he reiterated with emphasis, James and Mike didn't cancel James and Mike Mondays. Screenwave said it wasn't doing well enough and that canceling that would make other videos perform better. Which sounds consistent, kind of. Do you remember, like, Ryan did that thing where he canned the Talk About Games channel? He's like, the way that YouTube works is that if something's not working, you have to, like, kill it with fire. And I at the time, I was like, well, I don't know if you have to kill it. You could at least leave it up, or, like, maybe produce it, on a less frequent basis or something. He was big on, like, no, just burn channels to the ground, then create new ones. That's the way you chase the algorithm.
Yeah, I'm sure. I see a lot of people do that. I don't know if that really works. It doesn't seem very fun.
Well, it's not creative. It's not the creative arts, and like making YouTube content, at least the way we do it, it tends to be like creative arts,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not depending on this for like profits, I guess. So
God no. And finally, perhaps most interestingly, once he resigned, so he didn't sign anything at any point that said like non-disclosure or anything like that, and they're big on those because he just resigned kind of spontaneously. They sent him an email offering $1,000 to not disparage them, thinking like this guy's broke, he'll take the $1,000. And he didn't take the $1,000.
He wanted to retain his right to bitch.
We're going to give you $1,000 to not say anything negative about us. That was literally what the email was.
I admire that.
From a purely business perspective, if he someday turns that into a YouTube video that nets him $5,000, it's probably the smarter move. And then he can make another video like that, and he can at least drive traffic to his YouTube channel. So I definitely think he's looking at Red Cow's Kieran videos with stars in his eyes when he sees those views. I think he's like, wait a minute now. I got to get on top of this. He did seem to be living in fear, kind of Screenwave sending him a cease and desist. He felt as though they're a very kind of petty, vindictive company.
Makes.
And then finally, I heard his last and final Red Cow reference. He said, I'm getting like Facebook DMs from people saying, oh, did you know Red Cow Arcade made a video about you? And I'm like, who? And why?
Well, we have a channel trailer that you can watch here. And if you were watching this, check it out. It'll explain everything. We made this specifically for you.
Just for Kieran and for anybody with that same question. Fair enough, though. I would not have heard of Red Cow Arcade either.
It is fascinating.
Well, lots of stuff that I felt like the community had agreed on. Like, all right, Screenwave doesn't own any of the company. All right, Mike left James and Mike Mondays. All right, and he's singing a different tune. This guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of facets to it. It's interesting.
We knew there was, damn it.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.